Kar bi radi še poudarili, je, da banka je pomembno zvišala kapitalsko ustreznost glede primerjave z javnim. To na dveh področjih. Poleg tega, da sem zvišal regulatorni kapital, smo tudi znižali tvegane prilojene postavke in rezultat tega je, da imamo tier 1 najbolj kakovostni kapital. Kazali se nam je zvišal iz 12,7 na 14,1. Primerjavo z bančnim sistemom imamo le per konc lani, per konc decembra in takrat je bil ta naš kazalec višji skoraj 200 točk od povprečja bančnega sistema. Tako da lahko glede na trende to leto pričakujemo, da bo ta razlika celo večja v našo korist. Torej, naša banka je po tem kazalcu med prvimi v Sloveniji. Tukaj imamo en podatek o tržnem deležu Banke Koper v primerjavi z drugimi bankami, banka po banki. Te podatke zadnje, ker so na voljo, so per pol leta, per 30 junij in imamo lepo podatke le v neto kreditih, ker bruto krediti niso na voljo, da bi jih imeli v posameznih bankah. Tukaj tudi se lepo vidi, da je Banka Koper druga, edina banka, ki je rasla po tem postavki je Interbank in Banka Koper pa je tista, ki je najmanj znižala, če gledamo absolutne številke. Vse druge banke je upad neto kreditov veliko večji kot je v Banki Koper. Tako v absolutnem smislu, kot tudi v relativnem. Če gledamo tržni delež, smo pa celo povišali, če primerjamo neto kreditov. Če gledamo depozite, tukaj smo zabeležili kar veliko rast. Če smo bili še lani v tem času peta banka, po tržnem deležu smo sedaj četrta. To so depoziti strank, torej so vsi depoziti nebančnega sektorja, so nam rasli za skoraj 120 milijonov in tržni delež iz 6,5 na 6,8. Ostale banke, ki so tržni deleži rasli razen manjših bankah, ker je lažje doseči rast manj oziroma so celo padali. Tukaj bi lahko tudi povedali, da nam je uspelo povečati tudi delež depozitov, ki niso zavarovani z nastavno shemo, torej depozitov nad 100 tisoč evrov, kar samo po sebi pove, da naši depozitarji zaupajo naši banki. To je, mislim, eno pomembnih sporočil trga. Torej, če se je v bančnem sistemu delež teh vlog, ki so nad 100 tisoč nižal, kar pomembno se v naši banki povišal. Tukaj imamo entitetičen prikaz gibanja teh deležev bruto kreditov strankam. Vidimo, da smo ohranili več ali manj isti delež, celo rahlo povišali, čeprav so se nam volumni znižali, ampak so se v celem bančnem sistemu tudi volumni bruto kreditov še volumni znižali. Če je bilo konec septembra lani kreditov skupaj 35,8 milijard, ki je v sistemu še 33,5. To pomeni, da se v sistemu so se znižali za 6,4%, ti krediti pri nas pa 5,7%. To je bilo že povedano na začetku. Tukaj še enkrat vidi in nekako ohranjamo stabilen tržni delež, celo smo ga rahlo zvišali. Če gledamo pa neto kredite, je naš delež še bolj narasel, ker imamo relativno manj novih oslabitev. Tukaj imamo segment gospodinstev in SP-ev, torej prebivalstvo in SP-ji. Tukaj vidimo tudi tržni delež zrastel in tudi volumni so stabilni. Če gledamo za bančni sistem.
Just one point here. For the most part, this is mortgages for housing loans, which were relatively stable over the course of 2012-13. So, also there we saw that the demand for housing loans was not particularly lively in the course of the last few months. But our stock, which is roughly speaking 360 million out of the 610 million issued now, and it was relatively stable. Definitely, demand for housing loans is not growing in this part of this historical moment, I would say.
Torej, tudi tukaj je sistem, na tem področju bančni sistem je pal za več kot 3%, ni pa samo za dober odstotek. Torej, to je še en kazalec, ki je relativno govori našo korist. Če damo še naprej, tukaj imamo depozite, ko smo že povedali, tukaj smo zabeležili kar visoko rast. Depoziti so se nam zvišali leto na leto skoraj 200 milijonov, torej 13%, v sistemu pa le 7%. Tukaj smo že, če gremo še en slajd naprej, ko imamo depozita prebivalstva. Vsem tu zadovoljni, da se prebivalstvo, to so najbolj stabilni depoziti, da nam je ravno tako zrasel, večino v sistemu so pa ti depoziti prebivalstva padli za skoraj 300 milijonov v tem obdobju, oziroma 2%, mi pa beležimo 2,6% rast depozitov. To so najbolj stabilni depoziti, ker tudi dajejo banki možnost kreditiranja na dolgi rok. Kot tukaj sem že prej omenil, posledica, da so nam depoziti nam rasejo in krediti nekako ohranjamo stabilno, je tudi to, da nam loan deposit ratio, to je pač neki tak zelo grob kazalec likvidnosti oziroma samostojnosti banke, da nam je v tem obdobju od decembra 2011, ko je bil naš in Banke Koper, to je zelena linija in oranžna, ki pomeni bančni sistem, približno enak in znašal 136, torej če bi gledali neto krediti z depoziti, je bilo kreditov v sistemu za 56% več kot depozitov. Iz enake štartne točke smo prišli zdaj v konec septembra, ko je ta kazalec za Banko Koper znaša 109, za bančni sistem pa 115. To je še en kazalec, ki je govoril našo korist.
Yeah, probably. Sorry if I interrupt you. I really would like to emphasize this graph. This is basically, for us, the main indicator of liquidity for the banking sector as well. It is the proof that we are more and more, if you look at the green line, a standalone bank. That is, we do not need to go out for liquidity. Ultimately, we are virtually close to one, which means that we have as much deposit and we can afford to do as much credit. It was not the case back in January 2012, 2 years ago. It was not the same situation. When I came here in 2011, that was clearly to me one of the biggest problems, together with the quality of assets of the banking sector. The two things combined were making the situation quite difficult in the banking sector in Slovenia. One was the liquidity, and this indicator was pointing out quite clearly that there was a problem of liquidity, and the other one was quality. In the liquidity, both ourselves and the banking sector as a whole made a huge progress. There's a slight difference, I will come to you in a moment, but we started actively, as you can see, in May, June 2012, to work on this indicator, to improve our liquidity. It was deliberate. So the fact that we were roughly 140% back in June 2012, and now we are roughly 1.7, as you can see there, it was deliberate action from us to make sure that we were not in need of external liquidity to fund our operations. As you have noticed in the very first slide that I presented to you, our result was achieved by increasing the deposits, which was the denominator. I suspected in the case of the banking sector, most of the adjustment has been done by reducing the loans, that is the numerator of the ratio. So there was a difference between us and the others. But anyway, this remains very good news for the banking sector as a whole, because one of the main fundamental structural deficiencies that the banking sector in Slovenia showed until, I would say, sometimes last year, now is less and less of a problem, because liquidity is starting to be manageable by the banking sector. For us, as I presented to you before, definitely this is one of the strongest points we have. Our liquidity is abundant, And that makes us a very standalone, financially independent bank, in line with the recommendation. I have to add one point here. We were strong enough in the last few months, you don't see October, but it's still growing and getting better, this indicator for us, that we were in a position to repay partially the European Central Bank. We had something like 200 million of loans from the European Central Bank until close of the fiscal year 2012 and all the way through to September. We decided to repay part of that. And we repaid 50 million out of 200 million, which was a good 25%, proving that we have enough liquidity to start to repay all the funding that we have from external sources. In other words, we are counting or relying more and more on citizens and companies' deposits only. This is the principle of standalone, and is a principle that we would like to pursue, and we are actively pursuing, because that will give us the independence and the capacity to work without any leverage, basically. Sorry, but I wanted to point out this very important thing.
Nižji kot ta kazalec, ogromno to pomeni, da si manj odvisen od financiranja od tujih bank. Vemo, da je to velik problem v slovenskem bančnem sistemu, kot bi nam to povedal. Predvsem v tem zadnjih letu, dveh je težko priti do tega vira in seveda je potreba ta kazalec nižati. Še enkrat, posledic našega nižanja, predvsem, da smo rasli na depozitih, večini bančnih sistem je pa posledica tega nižanja, da so upošteva neto kredite, torej so tudi slabitve, so pripomogli k temu, ki so relativno velike, da se je ta kazalec znižal. To je ena kvalitetna razlika. Tukaj je en grob preseg kvalitete našega kreditnega portfelja. Torej imamo slabe 2 milijarde bruto kreditov. Od tega vidimo, da nedonosni krediti, to so krediti, ki zamujajo več kot 90 dni, so nekako volumni stabilni, se vrtijo. Celo so se znižali, če vedemo, lani so bili 240 milijonov, zdaj so 227. In znotraj tega smo predvsem znižali tisti najslabši del, to so DPE kategorije kreditov, ki so se znižali za skoraj 50 milijonov v tem obdobju. Hkrati pa smo uspeli, tudi deleži so enaki, kot je bilo povedano, hkrati smo pa uspeli ta procent pokritja, torej koliko so oslabitve, delež oslabitev v kreditih, smo vse skupaj zvišali iz 6,5 na 7,1%, za te slabe, nedonosne, nepovrhunne kredite pa smo prišli nad 50%, torej kar dober rezultat.
I would like to add one point about this. We consider in the definition of non-performing loans, nedonosni krediti, whatever is in delay more than 90 days. If a customer is in delay, that's the standard rule. Now, what you don't see here, because that is a classification, imagine that we have a sequence which is quite normal. First, the customer, corporate or a family or a household, goes into delay, and then it goes into substandard, and then in doubtful loans, because the delays keeps accumulating and the situation becomes worse and worse. So it's very important for us to manage the first part of that, which is the moment where the customer gets into delay, and it's very important that we stop the situation from deteriorating further. In the last year, that's why I was mentioning that the situation looked more stabilizing in the course of the last few months. The component of loans which were in delay more than 90 days, but less than 180 days, that is the component of purely delayed loans, those who are in delay, which was very stable, if not declining. Even more important, we capture the situation of delay before the 90 days, because in our systems and in our organization, we intercept whenever a customer is 1 day in delay, and we start to monitor closely. We managed to have the last bit of that, before they become overdue more than 90 days, that is the category, the cluster between 60 and 90 days, that particular one is very critical for us, because if we manage to stop customers going in more delay than 60 to 90 days, then we don't hit the category of nedonosni krediti, which implies some growth of provisioning and cost for the bank. I have to tell you that really the work that we have done in the last 1.5 years was quite successful, because we managed also to stabilize the category of 60 to 90 days and the category from 30 to 60 days delay before coming into the full-fledged non-performing. Working on that, on those two aggregates, managed for us, helped us in getting a stability, the stability which I showed to you, that is, crediti A and B are stable, and nevertheless the crediti remains at 11.8, because we intercepted early signs of delay in repaying. And what we did was simply contact the customers, ask the customers if there was a problem, propose to the customers restructuring sometimes, maybe reprofiling of the annuities of the rate that they have to pay. That's quite normal, as any good bank should be doing with customers.